Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. We are back. We have some things to discuss. All three of us were on our summer baseball trip, and there were some harrowing moments, especially late at night, driving back from Chicago, which if Russ wants to go into. Actually, Russ was comatose for most of it.
For some of it. I was trying to navigate for some.
One person was like this on the wheel for about 4 hours. But anyway, Russ will start us off with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I'm going to say rest in peace to Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman. Died of cancer. It sucks because I was always a fan. When I worked in retail, we used to talk about him a lot because that's when he was doing the late night show circuit, and people who were a little older than me clued me into the greatness of him, and he would be funny. Like if he went on Johnny Carson, he would get the whole panel to laugh, not just Johnny, but whoever was on the couch. And there's some great moments if you wanted to look up on YouTube. But I have to tell you, when the movie came out, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I told my best friends we're gonna go see this movie, and they were like, "Why? Why are we gonna see this?" Like they wanted to do anything else. And I dragged them in, and afterwards they were like, "Wow, this was great. Let's go see it again." Like it was one of those movies where if you saw it for like the opening, you were like, "Wow, I've never seen anything like this." And it was just laughs all the way. Even Big Top Pee-wee was good. It wasn't as good as that one. That was the second one. But
that was pretty bad.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, though, in my house, we were big fans. I still have a VHS set. We have no kids. Like we were the kids, and that show absolutely cracked me up. Everything from Cherry to just all the different characters. A lot of them big one, big names. Lawrence Fishburne was on that.
Yeah, no. I mean, the funny thing was there was an HBO special before the movie.
Yeah,
and it had Phil Hartman as one of the characters, and I don't think he was in the movie. I'm pretty sure he wasn't in the movie.
No, he wasn't. I don't believe.
But I mean, I liked it. I thought it was funny. Some people thought it was sort of nerdy, Kev. But no doubt it. I mean, I think it had an effect on comedy in that particular era. And funny thing was that he did some serious turns as an actor. He was in that movie with Johnny Depp about him being a drug. I think it was called Blow.
He was in one of the Batmans, and he was a good.
You broke up there, Russ. What'd you say?
He was in one of the Batman movies as a villain. Was pretty good too.
Okay, I didn't see that one, but yeah. So I mean, acquired taste, but I thought Pee Wee Herman was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think he was not my kind of humor, but I was certainly respectful that a lot of my friends really appreciated his humor and thought he was a comedic genius actually. Just his ability to, as Russ said, to make people laugh. So, I think he's going to be remembered as a guy that was very good at his craft for sure.
Okay, let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, July 31st, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen, and I survived the baseball trip.
Yeah, Kevin Allen, Detroit Hockey Now. I did, thanks to the driving of Mike Cogello at the end. Torrential downpour, 4 of us coming home. I mean, you could not see 9 feet in front of you. Yeah, it was and it was Mike's first shot behind the wheel, and he ended up getting the worst part of the trip. There's no doubt. Plus, it was late at night too, so not only was it raining like crazy, but
it was my second, because remember I took that drive down that Curly Q parking ramp in Chicago. That going up it at 5 miles an hour is a challenge. Going down it, going 5 miles an hour and riding the brake, it was. The only thing I wanted to do, Kev, was not scratch your vehicle. I did not want to get and God was playing tricks on me because, oh, by the way, I'm Mike Cogello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. I'll just say this. I don't know if my eyes were lying to me, but I swear to God, driving through Indiana, I thought I saw a funnel. I thought I saw a tornado.
I remember you said that to me, and I said, no, I don't see one.
It sure as hell looked like one. But anyway, all right. some breaking news only a few minutes ago. I mentioned it in our when we were just about to go live. The Minnesota Wild have come to an agreement with Philip Gustafson on a 3-year contract at $11.25 million, not per, but $11.25 million. That's about $3.4 million per season. That puts him in with Fleury and him up at the NHL level this year, with Jesper Wallstedt pushing to be probably the starter after this season. Russ, $3.4 million for Gustafson, who had a fantastic year, is pretty good business for Bill Guerin.
I mean, I don't quite get it though, because I think Wallstedt, I know he's 20, and so if you don't want to hand him the starting job at 20, I get it.
Right.
But to give 3 years to Gustafson when you figure Wallstedt's ready in 2, or maybe could be even ready next year, but we'll say in 2. Mm-hmm. Seems like you're paying him an extra 3.4 that you don't need to. So I don't love the term of the contract. I get why they did this, and then Fleury gums up the works for this year because technically Gustafson's the better goalie.
Well, okay, Kev, I think that the landscape in the NHL, with the exception of only a few teams like Ottinger in Dallas, Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, it's going to a platoon. It's going to a 2-goal system. And to my mind, this contract is reflective of that 2-goalie system.
Yeah, I don't believe that it is going to a 2-goalie system, but what I do believe is that the second goalie is going to play more than the old 22 games to 25 games. It seems to me, just in talking to GMs from people around the league, they want to get goalies down into the 54 to 56 game realm. And the other trend that we're seeing here is nobody really wants to pay goalies anymore because they really want to have 2 of them, and they want them. And I think that's the whole idea. As much as they like Wallstedt, even in 3 years, he'll still be 23 years old. Right. So you want that veteran guy to have there just in case he falters or just in case, he doesn't get there as quickly. And, you're paying for insurance, and Wallstedt will still be probably on a bridge deal at that time as well. So they probably won't pay a lot for him, and they'll have pretty quality goaltending even at the end of this deal for a very reasonable price. And, 3.4, I mean, that's like an average player's salary. It's just, there's a real reluctance to pay goalies, because invariably it seems like the guy that's number 2 rises up, and then you're overpaying the top guy. And so I think GMs are being very cautious in paying money to goalies.
Russ, are goaltenders the running backs of the NHL when it comes to, it seems like, they're important, and we know that goaltending is important to winning a Stanley Cup, but like running backs are important in the NFL. But for some reason, and I think we know the reason that running backs are not paid in the NFL, because their importance, I guess, is less because there's less running and they're injury prone, so they don't want to invest big money long term on them. Goalies have a longer window in terms of their effectiveness, but like Kevin just said, they don't want to pay them.
Yeah, I don't think they're the running backs though, because like running backs are only going to get X amount of time per game. Goalies, if you count like time on the ice or whatever, are going to play more than running backs, even the backup goalie, based on this system. So, but it's one of those unique things. And Kevin's right; they don't really want to pay the mega contract. It's just like I said, my only problem is here now, and this has been something that has happened to a lot of teams. Goalies now are getting teams to sign them to longer term than they probably want. And that's going to cause just as much problems down the road as signing that big-time goalie for a lot of money, especially if you didn't have him signed to, like, let's say 7 years. So like I said, I still think teams are going to have trouble with the cap with goalies, and I think, Minnesota might have one in 2 years. But for now...
Yeah, but I mean, you're still going to want a good goalie playing with Wallstedt, and he won't be so old that he's over the hill.
No. It's just
And the average salary probably then will be $4 or $5 million. So
it might, but let's say, Wallstedt's the clear number one and he does play the 55 games and he's your backup at 3.4. You're not going to love the fact, even with the cap up, that your backup's making 3.4. If that's the way it shakes out.
I mean, right now.
It'll be it's just $1 million difference.
Right. It's $1 million.
Yeah. I mean,
but right now, this year, they're spending a little over $7 million on 2 goaltenders. And we know, barring any kind of injury, Wallstedt's going to be in Iowa, and their tandem will be Gustafsson and Fleury. Fleury is done after this year. Maybe he gets traded at the deadline. Maybe he stays there. Who knows? But I don't think he's going to get extended. I'd be surprised at 39 years old whether he retires or not. But maybe he wants to continue. But I don't think he's going to continue with Minnesota because they've got what a lot of people regard as the top goaltending prospect in the league coming. But then for the following year, they're spending less than $5 million on their goaltending. And they have to do that, Kev, because, they've got $14 million in dead money from Parise and Suter. So they have to save money on their goaltending. They can't go out and get, go out and trade for a Bobrovsky or some big goaltender. So it's a necessity for Minnesota to not spend a lot on their goaltending.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Mike. I think they're pretty happy that, they know that they have cost certainty on their and what the goaltending they believe they'll have moving forward. Probably for 2 or 3 years, because Wallstedt's contract hasn't kicked in yet. So at some point, they're going to be dealing with that. So I think they're happy about it for just the reasons you articulated, that, they have dead money on their cap space because they got rid of Suter and Parise. So, I think they're pretty happy about that. And when you think about it, like, it won't be long till the cap's going to be $90 million, and $7
We're heading down a bad path because, like you said, well, it's just $1 million over what you probably want to pay, and that's true. But if you do that with 6 players, you're going to start finding yourself in trouble, and that's what teams do every time the cap goes up. Teams don't get smarter, Kev. They just spend more.
Yeah, but I think they're happy to have the third year for Gustafsson. Like, this is not like they gave him a 5-year deal.
No, but we'll see. Like, they may be, they may not be. I'm not sure they will be.
I don't know that the backup goalies are going to be getting $1 million in 3 years.
He had a .931 save percentage in 39 games last year, and then he was the better of the 2 goalies in the playoffs.
I get it. But it's not a long track of success, and I like him.
No,
not a long track of success either.
No, but it's not a lengthy contract either. It's just a 3-year deal. So
they're betting that success is real, and that they can allow Wallstedt to mature down in the minors. Just like, UC Saros has 2 years left in Nashville. They have Lankinen as the backup. They're going to keep Askarov down with Milwaukee. Why not?
That one makes a little more sense. And I don't love Saros, but that one makes a little more sense. Like I said, we'll see. Again, there's always going to be, even if the cap goes up to 90, there's still going to be teams in cap trouble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be caused by paying a goalie, $3.5 million.
Could be. You never know what it's going to be. Like, that's the whole thing.
Florida's cap trouble is because they paid a goaltender $10 million and they paid another goaltender 4 point something.
No, but just for argument's sake, let's say that was Gustafsson's, and you're like, we don't know who our number one goalie is, and then you're paying him 3-4. Like, that could happen. Like, it could.
Well, of course it could happen, but sports, there's no guarantees in sports. Like, I say this all the time. At one point, a general manager was actually quite mad when I said this to him. But they're only guessing. Coach only guesses who he should play. He doesn't really know. You're just guessing. It's based on your experience and everything else. So they've made a judgment call that Gustafsson's going to be their guy. Now, they may be wrong, but they may be right.
Gustafsson, who was good for 1 year for the Leafs too, and he wasn't very good after that. I know he had a heart condition, but he still wasn't very good after that.
Yeah, but
that's their guess. What you're saying is you think they're wrong, is what you're saying.
He was they're over hedging their bet.
The monster was an undrafted prospect out of the SHL, whereas Gustafsson is a second-round pick, was a pretty good prospect with Pittsburgh, got traded to Ottawa, now got traded to Minnesota. He's fairly well regarded, and he's finally played up to, I think, some of the expectations that he's had. So I'll just say this. I like the plan of Bill Guerin with his goaltending better than the plan that Kevin Adams and Don Granato have in Buffalo. I would rather have – now, they're not going to do this. They're going to play Devin Levi in the NHL. They're going to probably play him 50, 55 games. I would rather have Devin Levi playing in Rochester and have capable goaltending at the NHL level. The problem is they don't have capable goaltending. They have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who looks like Pekka Rinne one day and Hardy Astrom the next, and Eric Comrie, who got hurt twice last year. The Sabres, out of necessity, are going to Devin Levi, and I think that potentially risks, exposing him at a young age. I like what Nashville and Minnesota are doing, and I think it gives them better chances to make the playoffs than Buffalo's, even though Buffalo, I think, is one of the teams in the East that has a really good chance to make the playoffs. The only thing that can derail them, Kev, is I think their goaltending.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's just a different approach. Like we also don't know what went on in the negotiations. Was his position, I want a 2-year deal at 4.5, and did they come back and say, all right, what about if we give you a 3-year deal for 3, 4, 5? So but I do think the bottom line on this is that the Wild believe that 3 years is right for him, that they think he'll be around, and even if that he's end up the backup, and maybe they just feel like a young goalie, you shouldn't even count on him for 54 or 56 games. Maybe they think, if they get in that third year, they get 50 out of Wallstedt, then you got 32 out of Gustafsson. But I think it's a good price. I really do, and I think this was a good decision. I think they must feel strongly about it, or they wouldn't do it. But you got to have 2 good goalies, no matter how many games they play.
Yeah, my math skills are not exactly sharp. It ends up being 3.75 for 3 years. So that's anything over 4. I think he's going to be a tandem goalie this year with Fleury, and then next year, probably a tandem goalie with Wallstedt. So we'll see what goes on with that. Now, some interesting, arbitration, it's summer business. It's not exactly exciting unless a team walks away from a contract. What I've just been sort of stunned at, Kev, is the fact that, say if you use the Ilya Samsonov arbitration as the example, the Leafs offered 2.9, he offered 4.8. Of course, it ended up in the middle, but it didn't end up in the middle because of a settlement. It ended up in the middle because the arbitrator made the decision, which normally that doesn't happen. Now, that's happened with Jeremy Swayman of the Bruins. They didn't settle. They went to arbitration. I don't have the figures in front of me, but based on what he did last year with Ullmark and the year that they had, he's probably going to end up making $3.5 to $4 million on a 1 or 2 year. And they don't. And I looked at the Bruins situation here, and we talked about when Bergeron retired. Well, they have to replace Bergeron. Well, they have Trent Frederick and they have Swayman as restricted free agents. Once those 2 are settled, they have no money, none. They're up against the game. So I don't know what the hell their plan is, other than playing Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle up the middle at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think that is their plan. They've got to do something. And, it doesn't always – you got to pay a price to have the kind of season they had. And the price was that, they had to get rid of Taylor Hall. They couldn't re-sign Tyler Bertuzzi. Now they're in a situation where they're going to – not have the most dominant center combination in the NHL history. They're going to have to get by with average centers or even below average centers. Yeah. But it's not like they don't have any offense left. Still got Marchand, still got Pasternak. They've got some guys that can put the puck in the net, and and Coyle has proven he can play the game. Just, he's not a number one center, but, sometimes you get put in those situations and you rise up a little bit.
Yeah. Now, Kev, we had Uffe Bodin on our Off the Post podcast, and we talked about, all things Swedish, and one of them being near.
Fish.
Yeah, including of course, Russ had to go down the road of bringing up Swedish fish to somebody from Sweden, and of course, Uffe said, "Well, they're not called Swedish fish here in Sweden, just like Brazil nuts are not called Brazil nuts in Brazil."
No, but they were called jellyfish.
Jellyfish, or whatever.
Right.
This hard hitting stuff on the Off the Post podcast.
Hey, listen, I get to the bottom of things.
But we talked about Erik Karlsson and Russ. I mean, I'll start with you. Based on what Uffe said, he thinks he's going to get traded in September. You were of the I don't think he's getting traded.
Yeah, I mean, just my gut feeling just feels like it's not going to happen. But he's getting deja vu because this is what Karlsson did the last time, and it happened in September. So I think I feel differently. I can't go with the deja vu feeling simply because the cap's way tighter now than whenever he was dealing with this the last time. So that's the reason I have this feeling. He's going to go with history. So I don't know. I mean, one of us will be right.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is completely different. I mean, you're dealing with a $11.5 million player and a team that doesn't want to retain much salary and is asking for a lot. And as Mike pointed out, a salary cap environment where the teams who want him don't have any space. And, further complicating it is the fact that the teams that could be helpful as a third team want first round picks back, which makes it even more unlikely that a contender is going to get it done. So, someone's going to have to give here. I mean, really. And I know it's been reported that Karlsson has told them it's no longer just a hope that they trade him, that he really wants them. But Erik has no leverage in that regard.
No.
They're not going to trade him. In fact, it would be to their benefit in terms of he just said, well, I'm not going to play, and they didn't have to pay him. It just saves them money. Because they're not a Stanley Cup contender, as we all know. So, it would just give them a chance. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, if I had to guess, they'll reduce their ask for what they want in return. But I don't think they're going to move too far off. Getting me they're not going to give up half.
No,
right?
No way.
There's no way, right? I mean, they really want to do 20. So, maybe they'll have to do 30%.
Yeah, I had heard, I don't remember exactly where. It may have been Elliot Friedman, it may have been Pierre LeBrun, that basically the go or no go on a Karlsson deal was $8 million a year, which would mean them taking a haircut of 3.5, which is what, 30? That's around 30%. I'm sure, and the problem here is San Jose does not want to have $3.5 million on their cap for 4 more years. Mike Grier wants to be a playoff team in 3 or 4 years. Well, I get that, but that's the price you're going to pay for giving an 8-year, $11.5 million contract to a great player, but to a team that was not in a position to really, take on that salary on top of Vlasic, on top of Burns, on top of Couture. I mean, they're just loaded. I mean, they're loaded with bad deals, and he's a really good player. But if you need proof that the cap is just crippling, good players making big money can't get moved. And there's so little money out there, Kev, right now that you can't pay another team enough to take on, say, $3 or $3.5 million for 4 years. None of them have that money to do that. No.
Yeah, and getting even a third team. I mean, the teams that can do that, that have the cap space, just as you said, they feel they're going to be ready in a couple of seasons. Like, nobody's sitting around saying, well, we're not going to be ready for 5 or 6 years. So, they don't want a couple $1 million on their cap in 4 years from now. So,
right.
It's difficult.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Russ, when I brought up Nylander and we were talking about that whole situation, Uwe referenced what happened with Nylander before. And when he and Kyle Dubas, did a staring contest, and Kyle Dubas blinked at the 11th hour and gave him a 6-year deal at around $7 million. Now that turned out to be a good deal in terms of money down the line for the Leafs, but the problem was it set the precedent of folding. And I think there's one major criticism of Kyle Dubas's tenure in Toronto, it was giving Marner almost $11 million. It was giving. Now, I don't think you were gonna pay Matthews one way or the other, but by folding to Nylander, you set the narrative, and then you paid $11 million for Tavares, and then we're stuck on that 4 forwards making $40 million. So they're gonna pay Matthews, and when we were talking about this, and I said, Nylander saying, I'll take less if everybody else takes less. Well, Austin Matthews is going to tell him to go, what? Because he wants to make as much money as he possibly can, and he's not going to be dictated to by William Nylander. So at the end of it, I think Uwe agreed with me that if we're talking about $10 million, he's not getting that from Toronto. He's going to get traded.
I don't think he's getting it from anyone.
No.
Right. That's the whole thing. And that's where Uwe agreed with you that he's not going to get 10, but what he did say was it wouldn't shock him if he stays. And
okay.
Hold on.
All right, go ahead.
Your living will cave and he will stay because I think. Hold on, you got to let me finish. Right. I don't think the options out there are better than them signing him and keeping him. If nothing else, right. They're creating a market value for him where they could trade him down the line. But otherwise, all the other options don't seem better at the moment.
He said below 9, which Nylander will never take.
That's what he said.
Right. What are we talking about? We're talking about what he said.
Well, he won't get 10, and it's not going to be below 9, Mike. So do the math. It could be 9.5.
Well, but 9. Okay. And this is the thing, Kev, that he brought up, and I agree with. The worst news that the Nylander camp got was the Sebastian Aho contract. Because he's a center, he's accomplished, and he's signed for 8 years and he's making less than 10. He is a much better player at a much better position than William Nylander is.
Right.
So for him to expect to make close to that, if it's 8-8, if it's 9 even, fine. I think the Leafs will sign him. But Russ, he's asking for 10. He's asking for more than 10.
He's not going to get 10.
Clueless.
It doesn't matter. He won't get 10, but I think the Leafs are going to cave here because I think they've been trying to trade him, and I think they've looked at the market, and the market isn't great, and I think they don't want to walk him into free agency, after the season. So I think they're going to sign him.
Well, that okay. It's either you're walking. I would say everybody would agree that they're not walking him to free agency. They're going to either get a deal out of him or they're going to trade him because they're not. Treliving will not repeat the mistake that he did with Johnny Gaudreau and let him walk for nothing. That you cannot do that, and I don't think he will do that. So it's either you sign him or you trade him.
Well, you do, but I don't know. It's not going to be easy to trade him either. I mean, there's nobody that has any money, so I don't know. It's going to be difficult for them. It's the same situation as Karlsson, although his cap situation is better because he's. But still, it's going to be hard for people to find room for a $7 million player,
right? And they'd have to take salary back. So, in any deal. But anyway, a couple things before we go. One, Russ, you wanted to bring up the Emil Andre situation with the Flyers.
Yeah, there's two situations with the Flyers. Andre, I think fans were kind of expecting that he would play with the Phantoms this year in case he doesn't make the Flyers. But we heard about this situation with HV71 where technically he's on loan, and if you don't play with the NHL, they may ask for him back. And Uwe is of the belief that if he's not with the Flyers on opening night, they will ask for him back. So I'm just letting Flyers fans know, unless he's making the team, he's probably going back. That was the feeling on that.
Right. Now, Kev and Russell.
Hold on. There's one other thing. This could affect the whole league. So it's now up to the IIHF to decide if Ivan Fedotov's contract with CSKA is legitimate or not, because the Flyers said, look, he has a legitimate contract with us, and he should be able to go back and play, in our organization. Now, the thing is, there's two things. First thing at play is Fedotov's on the roster for the KHL, and he's on the roster for August 5th to play in a friendly game against Minsk. So clearly Ciska is not expecting to lose this. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say, Kev, with the IIHF, they have sided on Russia's side many, many times, and I don't expect them to do anything else but that with this.
Yeah, it's hard to know, though, because this is not the best time to be Russian. So I wouldn't want to guess on that, but it's I think we just don't know what's going to happen out of that.
The difference between these two situations is there's a transfer agreement between the SHL and the NHL. There is none for the KHL, and I just love how the IIHF is stepping in as the arbiter of this.
Yes.
I mean, I think they're sort of going outside their realm of power here. Like I say that you should not respect that NHL contract. I mean, right. How did you become the all-knowing?
I haven't heard what the reasoning is why they are the governing body in this, but somehow they are. And forgive me if I don't think that things are going to be handled fairly.
Well, yeah. I mean, the IIHF has, banned the Russians and Belarus since the war with
Ukraine. They banned them, but they let them play under a different banner too.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they are.
Well, right, but they're not participating in World Championships or World Juniors. So,
okay.
they did for the Olympics, but they're not doing it internationally right now. They're not going to be they're not in the World Junior this year unless the war ends between now and then. And even then, I don't know whether it's going to be something quickly that they're brought back into the fold. But I mean,
I'm going to go out on a limb and just say this. Kev, even if Ciska loses this case, he still has to somehow get out of Russia, and that may not be easy.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And how will the Russia look at him, even if he does get out?
Right.
So
he's putting in a call to Alexander McGillney, and he's looking at property and on the Russian-Finnish border. All right. Unless anybody else has anything to bring up before the end of the show, we'll end there, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Kevin Allen, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just